I was a senior in high school, 18 years old, when I had my sudden cardiac arrest. I was undiagnosed. Some history that you should know is that I was a club swimmer, very competitive swimmer for about 10 years of my life. So since I was about 8 years old, I had been swimming competitively. I was a 4-year varsity swimmer at Evergreen High School, and I was also captain of the swim team. I was ASB vice president my senior year in high school. I was always on the go, always doing something, never wasn't busy, never wasn't helping somebody do something. While I was swimming in high school, my junior and senior year, I began to pass out frequently at swim meets. My parents would take me to the emergency room on several visits, several occasions, and they couldn't detect anything through echocardiograms, which is where they put the stickers on your chest and they look at your heart waves and heartbeat. They weren't able to detect anything. I had an EKG. They weren't able to detect anything. Had an ultrasound of my heart. They weren't able to see anything. So it's February 12th, 2013. And I am kind of feeling a little lethargic that day. Had a rough morning with my mom and my sister. And we get to the school and I'm like, you know what, I'm just already so done. I don't want to be here, like just having a rough day, but on top of that, feeling more tired than usual. So I go to all my classes as I'm supposed to. I remember in anatomy, we had been dissecting cats, and I know it's gross, but we'd been dissecting cats, and that really stood out to me in my memory. I don't remember second period at all. I remember third period was leadership, and that's where the more traumatizing parts of the story begin. So third period leadership, I remember just being so exhausted. I had asked my first period anatomy teacher if I could go to the library and totally just skipped out on class. I had been pre-diagnosed with anxiety, so he was very familiar with the idea of anxiety and was very understanding with the idea of just letting me skip out on class that day, knowing that I was probably just really anxious inside and couldn't really function as well as I needed to that day. So second period I don't remember. Third period, back in leadership in a portable outside of the school. And I remember all day that day, our goal of class time was to hang up, I think it's something like 1,500 paper hearts that had every single student's name on them in the entire school. And our job, as it was getting close to Valentine's Day, was to hang up every single one of those hearts by the end of the day because we were cutting it really close again. So I was one of the last people left in the classroom. I had just been kind of resting on the desk in that room, and I wasn't really feeling like I wanted to go anywhere. So myself and a couple of my friends, they asked me if I wanted to go with them to the student center. So I dragged myself along and was like, okay, yeah, that's fine, I'll go. I vividly remember every single step I took up until the moment that I died. I remember walking across campus into the building. I remember walking in the hallway, and my friend started walking straight towards the library, and I said, oh, well, why don't we go this way? It's a lot faster. So we take a shortcut, turn left into the sophomore academy hallway, and I was walking up this little ramp, and all of a sudden I begin to feel myself pass out. So I feel myself begin to pass out, and I steady myself up against the wall with my hand. My friends are asking me if I'm okay, and I'm like, I don't feel very good. I start to lose my vision, lose my hearing, as I know all too well at this point what is about to happen. I know that I'm about to pass out. Little did I know that it was far more than just passing out. So I make my way far enough to where I can reach the office door. And the very last thing that I remember is the heaviness of the door and how hard it was for me to open it and push it open. So I slowly turn this door handle and I put all my weight into the door, and I quickly do a survey of the room. I didn't see anybody in there. However, there was a secretary right there to my right where her desk was. and I kind of did a little bit of a 180 and collapsed onto the ground, and I was dead for 10 minutes. Administrators and staff, along with the school nurse, quickly rushed to my side, and within 2 minutes had an AED on me and had begun CPR. I was shocked 3 times by an AED. If you don't know what an AED is, that's those big packs that you sometimes see on the wall. It stands for Automated External Defibrillator. They have the same amount of voltage that you would see, like, in the movies when people put the pads and, okay, we're going to shock, clear, 1, 2, 3, and then they shock a patient. Well, that's what an AED is, and that's what it does, is it shocks a very high amount of voltage through your heart so that it can start again. Well, every time that AED shocked me, it increased in voltage, and so it took the 3rd time, which is the max amount of voltage, to get my heart to even have the slightest murmur. By the 3rd time of that shock, the paramedics had arrived, and they pumped me full of adrenaline, and I was resuscitated. I remember being taken out of the office on a stretcher, and I remember demanding to sit up because during CPR, they had punctured a hole in my esophagus, obviously unintentionally. It's not as if they wanted to do that. But they punctured a hole in my esophagus, so I had a ton of blood seeping into my stomach. So my stomach was full of blood, and it kind of felt like laying on your back and trying to chug a bottle of water. It's not exactly easy, and it doesn't feel real great going down. It kind of hurts a little bit. And so I demanded to sit up, but at that point they didn't know if I had a spinal injury or not. So as they're taking me out of the office on a stretcher, that's what I remember. But the thing is I couldn't see anything, and I didn't know what had happened. I thought that I had just had an anxiety attack and passed out, and so I was demanding to go home, and that I just wanted to go home because I had no idea that I had just had a cardiac arrest. So not being able to see, that is because of the adrenaline that the paramedics pumped me full of. The reason that they pumped me full of adrenaline is to make sure that my heart did not stop again while they were on their way to the hospital. So I couldn't see because of the adrenaline and because of everything that had just gone on. My brain hadn't been in function mode for 10 minutes. I mean, I had no oxygen or real oxygen on my own to my brain for 10 minutes. And the brain starts to become damaged after about 5 minutes without oxygen. The next thing that I remember subconsciously is the sirens of the ambulance. I've actually been suffering with that for a very long time. The noise and the sound of ambulances is rather bothersome to this day because of some of the post-trauma that I endured. Getting into the hospital, I remember seeing the fluorescent lights one by one, just the light. And I was quickly reassured that sorry, I get really emotional at this part. I was quickly reassured that I was going to be okay because I heard my dad's voice. And he came running to my side, and I've always held his hand by his thumb, so he reached out his thumb, and I held his hand while they transferred me into an emergency room where they were able to start taking care of me and treating me. They pumped me full of potassium. My heart had been really low in potassium, which wasn't helping with the cardiac arrest. It wasn't the sole cause, but it wasn't helping. And I remember I still couldn't see anything at this point. They had sat me up a little bit on the stretcher. And the only thing that I remember seeing in the emergency room is I'd lean my head to the side because I was strapped down. I actually thought I was paralyzed because I wasn't moving, but my chest hurt so bad that I kept arching my back. If you can picture kind of what in the horror movies, like what those exorcism-looking things look like, where they arch their back up so high, that's what my dad kind of said it looked a little bit like. So that's a little scary to think about. But they transferred me from the emergency room to and get an MRI done so that they could really see into what was going on in my heart. Well, in the MRI is where they saw that I have a large sum of scar tissue on the bottom of my right ventricle. Remember that information for later. So I'm in the emergency room and I'm looking over to my side and I see my mom and my sister, and I remember my sister said, "What pretty green eyes you have." And my mom was trying to brush some of the blood out of my hair because I kept vomiting blood out of my stomach, because if you'll remember, that punctured esophagus led to a lot of draining of blood into my stomach. So I remember not only is my chest in a severe amount of pain, but now I'm vomiting blood, and I didn't stop for a day. And that was really traumatizing to have to look over and see that and feel that. Some of the only things that I remember seeing, my mom, my sister, she said, "What pretty green eyes you have." And then I remember looking straight ahead of me, and under that fluorescent light, I saw the most beautiful nurse I've ever seen in my life. It's my nurse Anna, and she was just took my breath away, and I kind of felt like she was like a guardian angel almost. Another thing that kind of gave me hope that I was going to be okay. So what my chest kind of felt like, to give you an idea as to what my position may have been like, is it's kind of as if somebody was to take a bowling ball and just wham it into your chest. I mean, the immense amount of pain that I was in was just so horrendous. They didn't end up breaking my sternum, but they did fracture it. And the reason that it didn't break is because the bones were still so flexible at 18 years old. And so, but I did fracture, I fractured all the ribs on my left side, but none of them on my right. And I think the reasoning for that was because the way that the secretary's desk and that whole office that I fell in was positioned, there wasn't any real room for somebody to be on my right side, so they just started CPR on the left. I thought that I was paralyzed, and so I woke up in ICU very carefully. I began by slowly wiggling each finger very small, and then my toes, because I was so terrified to think that, if I had had a head injury or anything like that, like what may have happened. I was asking questions over and over and over again in the emergency room, the same ones. What happened? Why do I hurt? Did they do CPR? Why can't I see was a big one. And so through all those questions, they repeatedly told me, "Well, sweetie, you had a cardiac arrest, and they performed CPR on you and shocked you with an AED." I had burn marks on my chest from the AED because of the amount of voltage they used. Now, girls, think about that for a minute. It hurt pretty bad. So in the ICU, I woke up, kind of really got my senses as to what exactly happened. And my entire life from that point on was flipped a complete 180. I had gone from a 4-year varsity swimmer to not being able to swim at all anymore. Physical cardiovascular activity is completely out of the question. The diagnosis that I was given is called arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia / cardiomyopathy, or ARVD / C for short. This diagnosis is extremely rare. I am not entirely positive as to the statistic. I apologize for that, but I believe, if I'm correct, it's about 1 out of every 1,500 people is diagnosed with ARVD, and not many live to tell the tale. A lot of people are diagnosed with ARVD during the autopsy. So myself and others with ARVD who have survived are extremely rare and have gone through a lot. It's not easy being 1 in 1,500. I don't know a lot of people my age who have what I have or have to go through what I go through, but I have been fortunate enough to have met a lot of people who have gone through similar things and know exactly what I'm talking about. I spent a lot of years feeling as if I was insane or crazy for feeling the way that I did and passing out at swim meets. I was told by doctors to stay hydrated and that to eat better and get plenty of sleep because my anxiety was going awry. And so arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia / cardiomyopathy, what this is it's a genetic disorder. And basically, at age 14, the child heart becomes an adult heart. Well, my heart, I had been swimming, like I told you, since I was 8 years old. And so over time, by age 14, my heart had gotten so muscular that instead of muscle on my right ventricle, it began to grow scar tissue instead. So it was expanding with scar tissue instead of muscle fibers as a heart should. Because of that scar tissue, it's kind of as if you were to take a whole bunch of gauze and layer it over a really deep wound, a really deep cut. That cut is not going to heal if you've got all that gauze on top of it. Similar idea to all the scar tissue on the bottom of my right ventricle. The electric signals from the top of my heart to the bottom were not always connecting or not always reaching, which created palpitations. And what palpitations are, they're skipped beats. And too many of those skipped beats in a row led my heart to tachycardia and then go into fibrillation and then led it to stop. And this doesn't have to happen while I'm doing a high cardio intensive activity. For me, it could happen as I'm sitting here right now. It could happen anywhere, and that's why it happened when I was just walking down the hallway. So now, like I said before, I'm unable to do any cardiovascular activities. I've been very limited with that. However, I have been able to find ways to work around that. I still do what I love, and I love what I do, and I love this life that I live, and I love that I've been given a second chance at life. I am currently attending the University of Montana, going for a degree in organizational communication with a minor in business. I look to maybe someday work for the American Heart Association as a representative. This way I can help spread awareness and hopefully see fewer and fewer young student athletes in the newspaper with the same thing that I had to go through, because I don't want anybody to ever have to experience what I've experienced. I'm very fortunate to be here today. I have nobody to thank except those administrators and the staff that helped revive me. It's not required for staff or administrators in school to be CPR and AED certified. It is, however, offered, but the difference there makes all the difference. These staff and administrators chose to get certified in CPR and AEDs, and because of that, I am sitting here today talking to all of you. The AED that was donated to my high school, Evergreen High School, was donated by a foundation called the Quinn Driscoll Foundation. The Quinn Driscoll Foundation was created after Quinn Driscoll, who was an 8th grade student at Y East Middle School, and he collapsed while walking around the track outside. They were unable to get an AED to him in time, and therefore he did not make it. Quinn Driscoll would be the same age as me today if he had lived. Quinn and I had many mutual friends, so I actually very vividly remember hearing about his death. I'm very close with his parents, Scott and Kelly Driscoll, and because of them and because of Quinn's life, I am here today. I'm very honored to be able to work with them and to be able to help spread awareness and to encourage the free heart screenings that they provide. Spencer's Heartstrong Foundation, as well as the Nick of Time Foundation, are two other foundations that provide free heart screenings. Yes, that's free heart screenings for people ages 20 and under. The fact that they're using the lives that have either been saved or the lives that have been lost to motivate them to save others is a beautiful thing. And I think that everybody should be CPR and AED certified, because I didn't think it was me. I was a 4-year varsity swimmer. I had been swimming for 10 years. I was ASB vice president, and I was captain of the swim team. Nothing could touch me. I thought that I was invincible, unstoppable, and had everything in the world going my way and my direction. And then I got slapped in the face with this huge life-changing event. And I have realized that there are way more important things in life than just yourself. I ask that all parents take the opportunity to get their kids screened, because if you had the opportunity to save your child's life, would you? Well, of course you would. So why wouldn't you take up the opportunity to do a free heart screening and save your child's life before you had any idea that they might even have what any of us survivors or those who have passed have had. I hope that you find my story inspirational and motivating. That is what I feel that I am called to do, as I've been given a second chance at life. Please take the information that I have given you and use it to the best of your ability to spread the word, and make sure that none of your friends or family members or siblings or anybody ever has to go through what I've gone through. It has been a blessing and a curse. I face challenges on a daily basis as a 20-year-old today. And I'm grateful for those challenges, because I feel like I have reached my life's purpose through them. But there are other ways to reach a life purpose than through dying. Thank you.